like 5090 finished very long ago. I'm sure like me your level of anticipation grows. I need to write more songs to improve my portfolio. I never know when I might meet an impresario. Let's have a solo. Questions in my life, this one does vex me so. I need the answers so that I can get on with the show. And so I hope you'll tell me, cause I really need to know. The calendar remains unchecked. Is it FAWM yet?
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening, Array of Emotions. Good evening, Riako Music. Hope things are going well over there in Belgium. The answer is no. There are 113 days to get through before the 1st of February, and February album writing month starts once more. So, Array of Emotions says, very upbeat. Jolly good. Yes, and as Array of Emotions says, is it FAWM yet? It's not. But it will be in 113 days. Array of Emotions says, maybe you can find a way of putting a counter on screen. Riako Music says, like a kid waiting for Christmas. Yes, only 112 sleeps until FAWM. Hurrah! I've got my shirt on, you see. There you go. And it's .org, not .com. Do not go to FAWM.com unless you want to go off to Amazon and have to buy eye bleach. So FAWM.org, FAWM.org, February album writing month .org. First order of the day today. Happy birthday, twins. Rob and Ruth are 31 today. How's that happen? I remember when they were that high. So happy birthday, Rob. Happy birthday, Ruth. I hope you're having a remarkably good day in these crazy lockdown times. Housekeeping. If you're watching on Twitch, hello. Thank you for following me. If you've already followed me, if you've not already followed me, I talk stuff about music and talk through doing stuff with all this gear, and I will play stuff of my own and share tips and tricks, particularly on the digital audio workstation Ableton. But generally, I'm kind of there to share my musical journey and help you on your musical journey or your creative journey of any wide ambit whatsoever. So please follow me on Twitch. If you're watching the edited down version of this, which makes a lot more sense considering I normally take at least 20 minutes out of the show between the broadcast and what ends up on YouTube, please subscribe on YouTube. I am a long way from my 1,000 subscriber target on YouTube, but clicking the like button and the little notify bell, it all helps. It all helps. And I got yet another email from the YouTube analytics crew this week that had, oh my God, OMG written in it. So, yes, I'm kind of doing okay on YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you. And I hope you enjoy the show. There's going to be a whole bunch of stuff on these shows, and I'll cover that in a minute. But first of all, 5090, health update, and all that. I experienced the post-5090 come down over the last 3 days or so, since Thursday's show. And my goodness me, it hit me hard. It's hit me harder this year than I think it's ever hit me before. huge attack of imposter syndrome listening back to my stuff on Friday, Saturday, getting to the point where, why am I doing this? Why have I spent all this money and 30 odd years trying to convince myself I was a musician, and it's all terrible, and definitely an element of depression in that, definitely an element of insomnia in that. So today I unplugged completely, and I don't know if you've seen my Instagram or my Facebook page, went on a long walk, and that's the first time I've been out on the fresh air and done more than about a mile's walking this year. And the sun was shining and it was lovely, and the jackdaws that live in the chimneys of the blocks of flats behind me and the crows in the village were heckling each other, and considering there's about 40 or 50 of each, it was quite a show to watch. And I climbed up my local hill, Elbury Hill, and got to the top and had a look round and took loads of lovely photographs. So it was really nice. And came back and I'd beaten my step target for the day, which is also good. Good evening, Dazed and Confused. Cody, hello. Dazed and Confused says, we all suffer from it. It's why I just don't re-listen to anything. Glad the long walk helped. Array of Emotions says, hey, did you ever get imposter syndrome on your day job? I did for a long time. In the last job, having to deal with other people in fairly senior positions, I began to realise that, I actually kind of was a bit more on top of things than a lot of people are. So, yes, I did, but not so much these days. But, so I posted... So this... sidetrack number one, and it's not kind of really a sidetrack. So friend of mine on Twitter and Facebook and loads of things is a musician based in, I think, if I'm right, and Stan, correct me if I'm wrong, called Muse for Now, MUZ4now.com. And he has a lovely blog and a very informative Twitter feed, and you should follow him on Twitter. But he was complaining about being followed by Twitter accounts that were obviously bots. And I was saying, yeah, the only thing worse than Twitter accounts that are obviously bots are Instagram accounts. And I've got another one today, so why don't I share this with you? So here's my Instagram page. And yes, my Instagram feed consists of a lot of cats because Instagram, and nice picture of Paris in golden hour from Guppy Wigbear, Jules, taking some nice pictures. But so if I go to my likes, this is what happens to me on Facebook. So there are a lot of people here who I know. I've got a new follower, and I'm not gonna follow her back because it's just spam, really. And I'm sorry if she thinks that it isn't, but it is spam. But no, it's this. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 of my photographs liked by the same user. I bet she doesn't really look like that. In fact, I think it's probably a sweaty Nigerian man in a stained shirt and just a pair of underpants in a 419 factory somewhere. It's probably a stock photo used for the cat. But I get one of these at least once every 3 or 4 days. It's just really not on. And I mean, it's like as if I'm a demographic that's going to respond to that sort of thing. Dazed and Confused says that's probably being too nice. Yeah, very probably. But I did take some rather nice photos today, so I'll share those with you because I'm in a sharing mood. So if I go to my photo stream, this gives you an idea of the sort of place where I live. So anybody here watch Sherlock, the Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman show, might recognise that house as being Appledore from the episode with the blackmailing newspaper magnate. It's actually the house of the managing director of the local engineering firm Renishaw's, and it is a private residence, and it is completely insane. Ryako Music's spotted it. Appledore, she says, and it is indeed Appledore. Is literally the other side of the village from me. And when it cropped up on Sherlock, I'd no idea it was going to happen. And I suddenly saw the house, and if I click on another one, this is my favourite ash tree. I've been visiting this tree, which is rather the worse for wear, which is at the top of Elbury Hill, for the best part of 25 years. Because this is my local countryside. So this was what I was walking through today. A large field of maize, which is very, very nearly about to go over. So I would imagine that's going to need harvesting this week. That's Elbury Hill in shadow. Astonishingly symmetrical, and I'm pretty sure it's got to be artificial. But I don't think anybody's ever done an archaeological dig. Array of Emotion says that's a good-looking tree. It really is a good-looking tree. In fact, if I go back to my photo stream, because I've gone in the wrong direction of the photo stream, because I haven't rehearsed this, that's the tree. So this bit over there, there's Appledore, and just on the edge there, you can see just there is a little monolith, which, well, it's not little, it's 112 feet high, and it's a memorial to William Tyndale, who translated the Bible into English from Latin for the first time. And the church really didn't take very kindly to that, because the clergy were used to being able to justify getting people to give them money by saying, well, it's in the Bible. I just read it to you in Latin, which you can't understand. But when the Bible got translated into English, a lot of people went, hey, this is not what it says. And Tyndale had to flee to Holland, but it didn't do him any good, and he was eventually arrested and burnt at the stake, hung, drawn and quartered. So let that be a lesson to you. Do not mess with the church, because they will hunt you down and they will mess you up. That was the lesson that the church wanted to convey to Tyndale's followers. But he did get a rather stonking monument out of it. And there it is, just on the top there. But, yeah, not much good when you're dead. So that was my tree. That's, again, local stuff. So Dazed and Confused says, yeah, that's a burial mound if I've ever seen one. Ryako Music says, oh, damn. Array of Emotion says, the Catholic Church have operated mostly in Latin until well into the last century. They have indeed. It's a strange, strange organisation, but I am not going to go there on this stream, because who knows? William Tyndale, that's all I'm saying. So, yeah, I've been in a weird headspace for a couple of days. Lot better now, lot better today. Made me daily step target, so that's a thing today. But yeah, I'm going to start talking about. The irony of it is that yesterday, when I was really down and low and depressed, was World Mental Health Day, It's like the irony of that fact was not lost on me. But I want to talk about ways of feeding your head and looking after yourself in these shows, because you can't be on all the time. And Ryako Music, I know, would love it if she could, but she can't, and I can't, and I don't think anybody else can. And the bands who were back in the day forced by their record company to tour, write an album, record an album, tour to support it, write an album, record an album, tour to support it, with no time off. Very few of those bands lasted. And if they did, they certainly didn't have the original lineups by the time they finished, because it's unsustainable. You, like farming, like me field of maize there, you have to let the field lie fallow for a bit. You have to let the creative juices recover. You can't be a songwriting machine and be consistent 24/7, 12 months of the year. Take time off. And in that time, that's where you start gathering the ideas and the motivations and the emotions and the concepts and the contexts for the next batch of creative craziness. So feeding your head is going to be a big part of these shows. To that end, I finally, after having it on my Amazon wish list for 6 years, I bought this, and I've already read 2 chapters of it. It does what the title says on the tin. I've seen David Byrne several times live, and he's lovely and really, really comes at things from interesting angles and hugely intelligent. And I mean, there are some great pictures in the back. It's all full color book, fantastic illustrations and photographs in it. Everything from architecture to musical instruments to recording technology to influences, whether it be the Beatles or Sun Ra or Aztec pyramids and Quetzal birds. So acoustics, the first chapter, and the first chapter was originally in Boing Boing, if I remember right, is all about how the acoustics of buildings dictated the forms of the music that was created in them. So in cathedrals, which Andy Byrne says, the average religious building has a reverberation decay rate that's more than 4 seconds long. So it's all about sustained notes, and you don't change key because that would just sound a mess. Whereas African tribal drumming is done outdoors, so it's very much designed to be energetic and loud so that it will cover large distances and people can go, "Ooh, party's over there." Really, really good book. So that's How Music Works by David Byrne. Really recommend it. And I discovered that if I buy something that's on my wish list, it automatically takes it off my wish list, which is something that doesn't happen if somebody else uses my wish list and buys me something off it. It stays on, which is confusing, but hey ho. So I will be discussing books a lot, probably in a bit more detail for that one when I've actually finished the whole lot and drawn out some of the main themes and how I, and by extension you guys, can then map what David Byrne comes up with in that book onto concepts that you can use for the way you write music in your style for your audiences. So, yeah, that's one of the things that this show is going to be about. So Dazed and Confused says that's on my read list too. Ryako Music says that's a cool cover. Dazed and Confused says, yep, my Metal Barn has some great... Oh, yeah, I can imagine. Metal Barn, great reverb. Array of Emotions. For a while there, my brain went, isn't that a science fiction writer? But of course, that's David Brin. Yeah, I've got quite a lot of David Brin up on that shelf back there. That's my other science fiction bookshelf. So there's an awful lot of Alistair Reynolds up there. In fact, I think there's pretty much everything of Alistair Reynolds is up there. There is also, what have we got up there? Oh yeah, there's Sundivers up there. So there's at least one David Brin up there. Lots of Lauren Bukeys. Oh, and Startide Rising I can see there as well. But that's behind the baseball cap, so you guys probably can't see it. I, as always, and Array of Emotions and Ryako Music are both profound science fiction book aficionados, as am I. Dazed and Confused says, haha, my other science fiction bookshelf. I lived in London when I was in my late teens and for most of my 20s. And there still is a science fiction bookshop in London called Forbidden Planet. In fact, now it's a chain. But when Forbidden Planet was just Forbidden Planet in Denmark Street, which was London's equivalent of Tin Pan Alley, it's where all the music shops were, I used to pretty much spend my Saturday afternoons in Denmark Street because I'd go into Forbidden Planet and just browse the comics and the novels and attend signing sessions by famous science fiction authors, and then just lick the windows of all the music shops like Rod Argent's Keyboards, which is where I bought that JX3P, Rose Morris, which is where the aria Strat that I was playing in the opening credits came from, and a lot of Macari's, Andy's Guitar Shop, and of course it's all gone now because they've knocked it down for a brand-centric retail opportunity site. But I went to signings by a lot of science fiction authors, and I've still got the signed paperbacks by, oh God, Douglas Adams, who wrote The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books, A.E. Van Vogt, who wrote things like Report on Probability A and stuff like that. Gent by the name of Frank Herbert, don't know if you've heard of him, wrote a fairly successful book called Dune at one point. Lots and lots of other ones. Michael Moorcock. So I was, and still am, a huge science fiction nerd. But Ryako Music says, of the demolition of Denmark Street. Why? With multiple exclamation marks. Because redevelopment, and because glass and chrome anonymous boxes make property developers more money than Victorian converted terraced houses do. And it's a tragedy and a great shame, but, you know, the oligarchs are in control in London, and that's the environment that oligarchs like to operate within. So the rest of us can basically get stuffed. It's a great shame. Dazed and Confused says, can't wait for the new Dune show. Probably be disappointed, though I will try not to have high expectations. I do like Denis Villeneuve's stuff. Arrival, I thought, I mean, it's not Ted Chiang's short story by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a really, really strong science fiction movie with a great vision and stonking special effects and a really, really good cast. And if you haven't seen it, the soundtrack is really left field and I really, really like it. So that's Arrival, which is Denis Villeneuve's other film. He did Sicario as well, didn't he? The drug war thing. So yeah, he's got quite a good track record, to say the least. So Ryaka Music says, I loved the way Arrival looked. Yeah, me too. And yeah, it was just very, very well done. Array of Emotions says, probably my favourite science fiction movie from the last few years. Yeah, I think probably mine too, to be honest. And oh yeah, of course, I've just realised he did Blade Runner 2049 as well, didn't he? So yeah, which was nowhere near as bad or as disappointing as I was dreading it being. I actually really enjoyed it. And it's still got echoes of the misogyny and the very, very strange gender perspectives that the original film had. But yeah, and I read this week, which I hadn't been aware of, that oh God, I've forgotten the guy's name. So the bad guy who basically bought the Tyrell Corporation. The original idea was that he was going to be played by David Bowie, and I would love to have seen that version of the film. So Ryaka Music, still about Denmark Street, says, shut up. Okay, that makes sense. Array of Emotion says, imagine if Ridley Scott made the sequel, it'd have been horrible. If Prometheus is anything to go by. Much as I love Ridley's early work, I have to say that he's lost it in terms of being able to write a coherent science fiction film, because Prometheus, as have been mentioned on this show before, is one of few movies where I literally shouted at the screen. I knew it was going to be a train wreck, so I didn't spend money going and seeing it at the pictures. But somebody eventually said to me, look, you can't grumble about a film you have not seen. Borrow this DVD and watch it. So I did. And yeah, I shouted at the screen more than once. The plot is incoherent. There are plot twists that make no sense whatsoever. I'm not even going to go there. And Covenant, just forget it. So yes, indeed, Denis Villeneuve did a really good job on Blade Runner 2049, an astonishing job on Arrival, and I have great faith that that his version of Dune will be a corker. Although I follow Kyle MacLachlan on Twitter and Facebook, and he'd posted side-by-side pictures of Kyle as Paul Atreides and the new guy as Paul Atreides, and Kyle has the blue on blue eyes and the new guy doesn't. And Kyle's comment was, I think Paul really needs to up his spice intake. Perfect. Ryaka Music says, I mistakenly paid money to go to the cinema to see Prometheus, but I laughed my ass off. I get, you either get angry or you just collapse into hysterical laughter. And I got angry at 300, one of the few films that I have actually walked out of because it was just so silly and so incoherent that I just went, yeah, done, and bailed. And one of the other films, French films, which had Marc Dacascos in it many years ago, called The Brotherhood of the Wolf, Le Pacte des Loups, which was based on a true story of, I think it was probably an escaped lion roaming the French countryside. But that film got so silly that I started giggling. And at the great denouement, where the bad guy reveals his kind of superhero costume / power suit, I just burst into laughter. And within 30 seconds, the rest of the cinema was just howling with laughter at the screen. Any chance of it being treated as serious cinema had just gone completely out of the window. Ryako Music says, no one was like, 300 is an accurate historical account. It was just people in cloth nappies shouting at each other and all oiled up. And well, Ryako Music says, I liked all the man-abs. Yeah, and I'm just going to say 2 words. Lola VFX. Anyway, let's return our focus to the show. And I said I was going to talk about what's this show going to be about? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Well, let's start with the basics. Is It FAWM Yet means, is it February album writing month yet? And February album writing month is a songwriting challenge, strangely enough, where you have to write 14 days, in other words, about a CD, albums. You remember those things? About an album's worth of songs in the 28 days of February. If it's a leap year, as it was this year, then you write 29 days, you write 14 and a half songs, and half is effectively a collaboration with somebody else. Or you could write a song that gets halfway and then stops, and people have done that. So FAWM is a community of people who create music, and they will give you feedback on your work. So if you're watching this on Twitch and you want an audience for your music, then February album writing month is a very, very good place to consider joining up. It's free to join up. You just sign up on the website, create yourself a profile page, and then when the clock starts on February the 1st, 2021, you write music. And the idea is that you write totally from scratch. So it's not about polishing off old ideas or taking an old song and giving it a bit of a polish. It's about creation. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is that it forces you to change the way you interact with your creative drive or your muse or whatever else. So I was talking with somebody a couple of days ago, and they said they knew somebody who'd been working on one song for over 3 years. And they still didn't think it was finished yet, and they still weren't prepared to put it online and let it out into the big world. That's one song in 3 years. And that was me before I joined FAWM back in 2008. The previous decade before 2008, I'd got a little Fostex X15 4-track cassette recorder multi-tracker. I reckon I'd written 3 pieces of music in a decade. And since I joined FAWM in 2008 and seriously got into it in 2010, really was, I think 2010, let's just check how many songs. Remember, because I'm a nerd, I have a spreadsheet of how many songs that I write. So there we go. Yeah, 2010, I wrote 1 song. 2011, I managed FAWM and did 14. And then it just got a bit silly. So 2012, I wrote 20 songs in 28 days. 2013, 22 songs. 2016, I went a little bit mad and wrote 31. Not doing that again. I nearly killed myself. I really was not in a good place by the time I'd finished. Since 2010, then, I've written 757 songs. And that's another important part of FAWM. You are not going to turn out something worthy of John Lennon or Paul McCartney or David Bowie in your first 3 months of writing songs. Your first couple of years of writing songs will, and I say this from experience, completely suck. You may have one or two decent ideas that might be worth developing and coming back to when your chops have improved, but the majority of your stuff for the first 50, 100 songs you write will be terrible. And the idea of doing something like February Album Writing Month, and particularly something like 50/90, where you have to write 50 songs in 90 days, is to get you through that phase of your songwriting career where your stuff sucks. Because you have to write something and put it out there for people to critique. And Nuaja, oh, good evening, Belinda. Hello. I can see it. She says, I have incomplete art projects that are waiting to be finished because they are missing something. I think it is fear of failure. It is very much fear of failure. It's fear of there being a definite response or result to that piece of work. Because if it's something you're hanging on to, it's still got potential. It's still got the possibility that it might be brilliant and that it could earn you your fortune. Although, arguably, no song is going to earn you your fortune in the music business these days because the music business is effectively dead. But it's that fear of commitment. It's that fear of saying, this is done, that holds people back, and that keeps them in that suck zone of not writing enough songs. And FAWM and 50/90 get you through that suck zone into the point where you start writing stuff where you listen to it and go, you know what, that's not bad. And 10 years after I started, there are songs that I write these days that I think, yeah, that's probably okay. Ryaka Music says, we have all made crap, lol. Nuaja says, for me, I have to focus on enjoying the process. Dazed and confused. I tend to like my crap the most. I know what to do next time. Nuaja says, yeah, right. And it's true. But FAWM will help you get through the suck zone, will help you identify what's making your stuff crap and suggest ways in making it less crap. And there are a lot of very, very supportive and very, very creative and very, very gifted people on the February Album Writing Month site. We call them FAWMers, FAWM-ers. So I'm just gonna call people FAWMers from now on. So you get the idea. There is a culture. There are a number of words that have cropped up on the site over the years, like a zong. In fact, I can show you a zong here. This is the Rocktober is underway at the moment, where people write cover versions, and this is the page of songs that have been posted to Rocktober. So Fuzzy Geordie, God bless him, has just uploaded Addicted to Love by Robert Palmer, which has been deslicked, ukulele'd, melodica'd because it's fuzzy, mercifully short, you should see a doctor about that sweaty heart. And it is currently a zong, which means it's a song with 0 comments. So it's a 0 comment song or a zong. And that's the only zong on Rocktober. And that's only because Fuzzy only posted it 13 minutes ago. So it will not be a zong for much longer. Nancy Rost. Good evening. Hello, Nancy. It's lovely to see you here. Nancy says, quite rightly, there is a glossary. There is. There's a really good help section on 5090 and FAWM. So do check it out if you're thinking of joining in the fun. So February album writing month starts in 113 days, and I am here to help you get ready for that moment. So we know what FAWM is. It's a songwriting challenge where you have to write 14 songs, 28 days, about an album writing, about an album's worth of songs to write in a month. That's kind of the idea. So that's the point of February album writing month. What's the point of this show? Why am I doing this? Okay, first and foremost, it's so that we'll all be ready to go on February the 1st. It's going to be about helping you hone your songwriting, performance, producing chops, so that you've got those down pat, so you're not stressing about that aspect of stuff. You can focus on the creative stuff. You can focus on coming up with ideas on the creative part. So it's about doing, not worrying about how you're doing it, if that makes sense. Now, I'm an Ableton user, so I'm going to be focusing primarily on using Ableton to produce the stuff that I produce. And I'm going to cover a very basic tip using Ableton later on in the show. But you don't need to use Ableton to be able to use the tips and tricks that I'm going to share. That's kind of my criterion for selecting a tip and trick that I want to share with you, is that it will map to whatever DAW you're using. I'm using jargon again. DAW, D-A-W, what the hell's a DAW? Okay, a DAW is a digital audio workstation. It's a piece of software that you run on your computer that you use to record your music. So I've got over there in the corner an old Korg digital 32-track recorder, because back then DAWs, digital audio workstations, really were only just beginning to be technically complex enough to handle doing multi-tracked audio recording. And I started off using a piece of software called N-Track many years ago, which was one of the first very, very cheap, very, very effective digital multi-track recorders that ran on your computer. And my first couple of years writing songs, I was using N-Track, but then got an Ableton Launchpad, and that came, no, it wasn't, it was a Focusrite, my audio interface that I had back then came with a light version of Ableton Live, and I installed that and just got on with it perfectly. It all made sense. So I ended up using Ableton as my DAW of choice. And this is what Ableton looks like. So there are tracks, audio tracks or MIDI tracks that run from left to right. And then there's a master track at the bottom. And I can flip that view round by 90 degrees so that it actually looks like an old-fashioned mixing desk with volume sliders at the bottom and all the controls that you'd have on a mixing desk. So Ableton has two different views that do different things, and I'll talk you through using those different views at some point. Dazed and Confused also notes a very important and very, very common feature of this show, which is that they're all here to sidetrack me. And it's absolutely true. And another piece of jargon, which you'll hear a lot on these shows, from the film Up, with where the dogs see the squirrel. If we get sidetracked, then I should really have, like David Array of Emotions was saying, you really need a countdown on your screen at some point as to when form actually takes place. I think I also need like a squirrel alert for when I'm going completely off topic, because I mean I'm even referring to it in the opening credits now. It's got that bad, but I do tend to get sidetracked. So I'm using Ableton. So we go back to Ableton. So this is the opening credits theme tune, and there's 13 tracks in it. Well, there's actually more than 13 tracks, because the Is It FAWM Yet I actually recorded 8 times, which is why it sounds big, because I'm obsessive that way. But you don't have to spend money on getting a DAW that can do a lot of this stuff. There is BandLab have made the old, because it's been kicking around longer than I've been making computerized music. There is a free DAW called Cakewalk, and as you can see, it's organized in exactly the same way. You've got horizontal tracks that can be either MIDI or audio. You can change the volume, and you can use VST plugins. Ryaka Music says, were those pumpkins on your desktop? I mean, yes, they were. It's Halloween. I'll show you that in a minute. So Cakewalk walks in exactly the same way. You can just go to the BandLab website, download the BandLab Assistant, which is their software versioning, updating, download engine app, and it will install Cakewalk on your machine for you. That's absolutely free. It also comes with some very nice VST plugins, including a virtual bass guitar, virtual drums. So there's a lot of good stuff in it. For a first starter DAW, there are other DAWs available, but I really recommend, if you don't want to spend any money, if you're not sure that this is for you, then don't spend any money, but don't make life difficult for yourself. Get a DAW that will actually do the work for you. Install it for free on your PC, and off you go. So yeah, that's my desktop at the moment. That is a pumpkin farm in the middle of the Cambridge Fens, just outside a little fenland town called Chatteris. In fact, I was driving home from my mum's funeral, which was almost exactly 10 years ago, realised that the landscape to my left had gone orange. And it was like, what the hell? And the fens are in the middle of nowhere. So I just pulled to the side and got out the car and had a look. And that was what confronted me. So I grabbed the camera out the boot and took that photo. Ryaka Music says, did you get a pumpkin from Halloween? I've still got last year's, actually. I got a plastic LED one that lights up and flashes. So I already have a jack-o'-lantern, Mel. It's already. And my costume is already as well. That will be unveiled when we get a little closer to Halloween. After squirreling me, and Mel said, yeah, that was definitely a squirrel. Let's go back to Ableton. On this track, I use synthetic drums. So as you can see, this one, I've just got an indie dry drum kit. There are loads and loads and loads of different drum kits that you can load up that have all been sampled. It's really, really complicated and really, really giving you everything that you could possibly want. And then they do it again with expansion packs. So I've got a couple. I've got the Metal Foundry and the Progressive Foundry. I have a whole bunch of Easy Drummer, which is Superior Drummer's smaller cousin, including one at the bottom there, Twisted Kit, which is Tom Waits' drummer's drum kit, and all the Tom Waits type rhythms. Naja says, okay, be back in a bit. Okay, see you, Belinda, for the moment. We'll probably still be around. So having a virtual drummer like that is what made, I think, the biggest difference to my sound when I started, or from when I started in 2010. For the first 3 or 4 years, I was just using the Korg primarily for the drums and the rhythm and the bass and everything else, and then just putting a bit of guitar on it and occasionally singing, because my singing voice back then was appalling. But now I can put a drum track together and I can make the drums change for the verses and the choruses and everything else. De French Doge, you're better late than never. Lovely to see you again. I hope things are well with you. How are your allergies, mate? I hope you're not suffering as badly as you were last week. So one other thing I'm going to call to your attention, and this is something again that I like about Ableton. I put markers up so I know where the verse starts, I know where the break starts, I know where the guitar solo starts, and I know where the end is. Strangely enough, because the sound stops. De French Dose says, I'm good now, head first only. Good, glad to hear it. So this is a cut back production for me, because there is one synth track, there are 2 rhythm guitars, both my Telecasters, the Fender and the Squier, and then the Ibanez RG770, which is my metal guitar for the guitar solo. So you've heard it once, but I'll just play it you and then I'll talk you through what I did.
Seems like 5090 finished very long ago. I'm sure like me your level of anticipation grows. I need to write more songs to improve my portfolio. I never know when I might meet an impresario. Let's have a solo. Questions in my life, this one does vex me so. I need the answers so that I can get on with the show. And so I hope you'll tell me, cause I really need to know. The calendar remains unchecked. Is it FAWM yet?
Now, I don't know if you noticed, but there was slapback echo on that. And I thought, especially for an array of emotions, that I would actually record that song using Wedding DJ. So here it is. The slapback actually works quite well for that kind of punk / R&B. But when I hear it now, just in a dry room, it's quite fun. Riako Music says, yeah, but it does get on my wires after a bit, so I'm going to just turn it off. That's better. It's really funny how different genres of music actually almost lead you to expect that vocal treatment. So it's very pub rock. There's no bells and whistles. Well, I'm using Arturia's Analog Lab, which is their flagship synthesizer plugin for literally one triad, and the actual patch I'm using is a Oberheim Matrix 12, which when it came out cost more than this entire setup did. Very, very, very nice. Dazed and Confused says, squirreled myself, almost burnt my pizza. Oh, no. Now, food comes first. Despite vowing that I was going to give up pizzas because I need to watch my weight and I was eating way too much cheese and I don't want to end up with gout, I kind of weakened on Friday because pizza. I love pizza. So I had a very nice pizza on Friday. So I hope yours is not burnt and enjoy. My mouth's watering just thinking of pizza now. Pizza. So yeah, there's just a bit of flavour on the synthesizer there, but there's the two Telecasters panned. And this is one thing now, Peter Watkinson, aka Lord Sapient, for metal swears by hard panning guitars left and right, far over as you can get. So 50 right and 50 left. I have done that and it works very well with metal, but for less aggressive sounds, I've got one set 40 right and the other one set 35 left. So I tend to bring them in a bit. I want the mix and the reverb in the mix, because there is reverb in the mix. I want the mix to be able to move outwards as well as inwards, if you see what I mean. Array of Emotion says lots of bands do that now. Yeah, they do. It is a recognised production technique, particularly for metal bands. But it was interesting. I did the free Facebook course that Bobby Osinski occasionally does to promote his full courses, and he was talking about track spacing and leaving gaps in the mix, and he was adamant in his course. He said, don't put things hard left and right ever. So it's like, yeah, I can see that. And in just moving them in 20%, 15%, you let them bounce off around the rest of the mix. And so I've stopped doing the hard panning. But there's still a lot of separation in those guitars. And then the vocals are slap bang in the middle. The guitar solo's slap bang in the middle. The bass is slap bang in the middle. The drums are kind of spread about because I'm just using the stereo mix out of Superior Drummer. And the many instances of Is It FAWM Yet are spread right the way across, from 40 right on one side to actually they're quite right heavy. Oh no, there's 35 left there and 31 left there, so it's all spread out. And one thing that I have, and I should really use it, and let's try using it. You can occasionally pick this up on Isotope's site for free, if I can find it. There it is. So Isotope makes something called Visual Mixer, and I've actually put that on the master track, which is not where it's supposed to go. But the idea is that you put it on each track on your DAW for audio, and then you can literally move each individual element to somewhere in the sound field. So the top is the front, so that's up front and right in front of you, and then off to the right and further back and further back and further back and further left, which is kind of cute. And Dazed and Confused says, oh, that's nice. It is, isn't it? And I've never used it. And I've had Neutron for, 3 years now? There are still loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of elements of the many plugins that I've acquired over the years that I've just never used. And I was today years old before, and here's tonight's HFO production tip for you, and it translates to other DAWs as well, but I'm going to show you how to do it in Ableton. And it is very simply that when you see I've got loads and loads of guitars and loads of vocals and loads of backing vocals and a whole bunch of other stuff. And on this track, I was literally going, right, I've got more vocals to do. I'm going to insert another vocal track. So I'd right click, insert audio track, blah, 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 do that again. Then for the next track, it's like, right, I need another vocal track. So I'm going to do insert audio track again, record another. Whereas that's something I always do on my songs. So as I say, I found today that if you go to your Ableton Live user library and show it in Explorer, so on mine it's held in my D drive. If you create a templates folder in your user library folder, you can chuck a bunch of Ableton Live sets in there that you can then open from within user library. So if I go to templates, and we'll just open Chris's synth pop template. Save changes to the question before closing. No, because I didn't really do anything. And what I did was, without adding any MIDI and audio information in the set, I thought, okay, well, I always use Superior Drummer, so let's put a Superior Drummer track on there. I always use guitars, so let's say I'm going to have 5 guitars. My guitar submix is always going to need a bit of compression, and I always use the Waves DBX 160 plugin for the compression. I'm always going to use bass. I'm pretty much always going to use synths, and I'm always going to use vocals. And on vocals, I'm always going to use the mouth D-click, the DBX compressor, and Nectar 3. So why don't I just make a template that's got all of those in it? And that will save me a good hour's worth of work when I do a synthpop track for FAWM or 5090 or anything else. And you will see as well that I have downloaded from Spitfire Audio's site some pre-prepared Spitfire Audio templates that use the free Discover BBC Symphony Orchestra plugin, and it's even been loaded for you with each instrument pre-selected. So you've got the whole mix there, and if you open the piccolo one, it will have the piccolo pre-selected. And individually, it doesn't take long to actually drop the Symphony Orchestra plugin onto a track and then select piccolo and label your track and everything else. But when you're doing it for 23 separate tracks and it takes a couple of minutes for each one, you know, that's the best part of 3/4 of an hour. So what I've done is I've also, because I'm me, combined the two. So you see, I have a template called Chris's Full-On Template. The French Dose says, templates are good, but depending on the VSTs you need, loading can be important. Indeed, which is why on all my templates, I leave things like ozone off and out of the equation. So if you look at the master, it's empty. If you look at the synth submix, there's nothing on there for the individual synths. Because I've got a lot of synths and everything else. So the vocal submix on this I haven't actually saved yet, so it doesn't have the processing on it or everything. But Superior Drummer's already loaded, and it's the update again. So I haven't touched this for, well, obviously I haven't touched this since version 3.17 was in use, which would have been July. So I need to update my templates. Ryako Music says, I'm terrible and I ought to make templates. They do come in tremendously useful, and I've only started using them, and I don't use them a lot. But life's too short, basically, so I do tend to use them these days. So that's my tip for today. And if you don't have Ableton, then worry not, because you can do the same thing in Cakewalk. All you need to do, De Fresh Dose says, sometimes being lazy is good. It really is. It really is. Where's Cakewalk? There's Cakewalk. So there are a bunch of different templates that you get literally out of the box when you open Cakewalk. So CWT is a Cakewalk template, and all you need to do is open one that's close to what you want, drop your VSTs in, and then save it. As a template. Simple as that. So it's just as easy to do in Cakewalk as it is in Ableton. And one thing I will show you, and I apologise for the short delay while I reload Ableton Live. One other thing that I learned today is that you don't even have to faff about. De Fresh Dose says, and I can confirm you can create templates or use pre-made ones in Persona Studio One. Excellent. I mean, it's a good idea. It saves time. Why wouldn't DAW makers provide that facility? It's worth doing, and it means that should you be seized by the muse, then you're good to go. So I've fired up Ableton, and you see it's actually loaded my Chris full-on template with all the Spitfire audio and everything else as my default template. So how did I do that? I'll tell you how. I literally loaded the file. So my file was, in fact, why don't I just do it? So if I go to templates, we'll load Chris's full-on template version 1.0. I'm not going to update the version because I haven't really changed anything to it, but because it's big, it's going to take some time to load. So we'll get rid of that version of Superior Drummer, and then I'll go to me plugins, and I'll drop the new version of Superior Drummer into my template. And we'll have, I've been using the 77 tight and dry kit recently, so we'll just use that in the template. It's got nice purple drums in it. They're all Yamahas. Isn't that nice? And then, so I'm going to drop me Waves plugins in as well while we're here, because I have rather a lot of stuff, and it's just scrolling. It gets in the time. So there's my guitar. I'm going to leave that with the rhythm guitar default mix. For the vocals, I'm also going to have me vocal submix for lead vocals. And I am also going to drop in before the compressor because I don't want to compress the clicks and make them even louder. I'm gonna use that. Yeah, that'll do. So there's my D click, and then I'm going to add Nectar 3 at the end. Nectar 3 is like a vocal processing plugin, and it has a number of different elements. So it's got pitch correction, which I hardly ever use, equalization, compression. You can add a de-esser dimension, which basically is like a fancy chorus. A noise gate, which I always use. So I'm going to drop that in. And that is normally set to about minus 20 dB. And we'll leave the rest for the moment. And then the synths, I'm going to drop compression in again. This has become, I mean, I think if you go to the website, the Waves website, at the moment, the DBX 160 is going for like $30, and it is well worth it. It's really, really good for pretty much everything in terms of, where's me? There it is, big synth. And I'll leave the rest for the moment. But so I am now going to file, save live set as. I'm going to go to my user library, which is on my D drive. User library, templates, Christopher 1 template. So when you've got your template in Ableton set up exactly how you want it, go to Preferences. And Preferences does eventually open. Go to File folder. And then you just click on Save Current Set as Default. And now every time I open Ableton, it will load with this template loaded, all ready to go. And I don't have to faff about anymore creating stuff from scratch, which is useful, I think. The good thing, at least for me, says Ryako Music, about not using templates is that I feel more open to making things that don't use the same instruments, which is, these are kind of categories rather than actual instruments being loaded. So like in the synths, there's actually nothing in there. The Spitfire audio's in there, but if I decide not to use it, I don't have to. I have a couple of other string and brass libraries that I can quite easily swap out. But it's just having everything nicely organized and color coded. I really like. Ryako Music says, if the project is blank, then I feel like I have more room to feel it out and use my intuition, which is, that's good. I'm in a weird headspace at the moment. I tried doing some drawing this week, and I did one or two sketches and I'm using Manga Studio at the moment for drawing because I like the pens that interact with my template, my tablet. But just having that acres of blank white space on my monitors downstairs, which are 28-inch monitors, so there's quite a lot of white space confronting you. I just couldn't handle it. I think I need to go back to just sitting at the drawing board and using a pencil and proper paper. It's really strange. I just couldn't get my head into a creative frame of mind for drawing using the tablet at the moment. Maybe I will when I'm not quite as burnt out as I have been, but who knows? Dazed and Confused says, true, I should at least put one in for my Vox mic guitar, though. Doesn't take long to load from blank, but I'm always going to use those. And as Riako Music says, everyone works in their own way. So you make your template fit the way you work. If the way that you work is start with a completely blank sheet, absolutely go for it. Absolutely go for it. Riako Music says, was it really intimidating? You should rest. Maybe intimidating is not the right word, but it was. I haven't got that spark at the moment. I really haven't. After 50/90 finished, the last few days I've come down pretty hard, which is one of the reasons why I went out for a walk to just clear the brain fog this afternoon, and that has helped tremendously. And I'm hoping that I will improve if I just do that a few more times this week and make it a regular habit of getting more exercise. All right, I'm gonna move on. So, point of the show is to be ready to go on February the 1st. It's to help you, and I am sad, and yes, I have actually created a mind map with my new molten lava fountain pen, I have to say, which was great fun. I've got a room full of stuff here, and it's a room full of stuff that I've collected over 40 years of just being obsessed with music. I fully appreciate that most of the people doing FAWM are not in the position of having a room full of gear like this to call on. So I'm also pretty much retired now, so I have to do things on a budget these days. So I'm always on the lookout for stuff that I can do on the cheap or free that still sounds good. And that will be one of the central ethoses of this show, is finding stuff that is both cool sounding and, if not free, then certainly dirt cheap. So there will be a lot of that in the next 113 days until February the 1st. Why should you watch this show? Why should you sign up for February Album Writing Month? Well, we kind of covered that at the start of the show. It's about motivation. It's about getting through that phase of your songwriting career where you suck. And you will suck. A lot of your early songs will be terrible. There are songs that I wrote when I was starting doing this that will never hear the light of day again, and should probably be buried or even nuked from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. But the idea is that in writing 14 songs in 28 days, you have to produce. You have to say, that one's done, I'm going to move on. And that is incredibly difficult. As Belinda was saying earlier, there's that level of investment that overpowers your judgment of saying, if I let this out into the big world, then I am going to find out what it's really like. And that fantasy that I have in my head of what I think it's really like may or may not survive that. And a lot of times people don't want to commit to letting their songs out because they're afraid that their vision of what that song is and everybody else's vision of that song will not be compatible. And, you know, like I was saying, that talking to somebody this week, and they knew somebody who has had one song that they've been working on for the last 3 or 4 years, and that they have not committed to finishing it because of that fear. And FAWM and 50/90 effectively teach you to overcome that fear and give you the support to say, well, yeah, it's got potential, because it's a very, very supportive and safe and friendly atmosphere where you can feel confident of saying, well, this is what it sounds like. And even if it's not particularly good, people will help you to build on the bits that are good. Nancy Ross makes a very important point. 14 songs is the goal, but even one is good. And it absolutely, because if you don't sign up for FAWM and you don't change what you do, you might not have anything new to show for it. But if you sign up for FAWM, the first year I did FAWM, I just showed you on that spreadsheet, I did one song, and it wasn't even a very good song. But that song became 10 songs the next year and 14 songs the next year after that. And it gave me the momentum that I needed to get past that fear of saying, well, I'm not going to finish that, because if I finish it, I'm basically making a creative statement saying this is what I do. And I was terrified of that. And it took a lot of getting over that. And frankly, if it wasn't for February Album Writing Month and the community of February Album Writing Month, I would probably still only be writing 2 or 3 songs a decade, and I'd probably still be on my little Fostex X15 because I wouldn't have worn it out and had to expand. And, oh, squirrel. As some of you may know, I am actually currently sitting underneath a bed. This is my studio at the moment, is a high level bed that I have been working on under for the best part of 15 years. And acoustically, it's terrible because my monitors are literally shoehorned into the corners. Well, you can see that one there. Are shoehorned into the corners with a mattress about an inch above them. So it's really not been particularly optimal. Plus, I don't have a lot of padding up here. And I have suffered from head injuries under here at times because when I really get carried away with something, I forget I'm under a bed and I stand up, and that hurts. So I made a decision this year that enough was enough and ordered a studio desk. I got an email on Friday from Guy at Chunky Studio Furniture, and my desk is being built next week. And that means that it will probably be delivered the following week. So when I know when it's being delivered, I will be able to schedule what happens in here, because it's going to be chaos, because all this is going to have to be shifted. I'm going to put the bed on free cycle. So I've got to get the bed disassembled and ready for collection from downstairs because of social distancing and everything else, which means I'm going to have to take everything off, and all the cable trunking for the cameras and the speakers and everything else, it's all going to have to be gathered up and moved out the way. So that will effectively knock this room out of commission, I would think, for a week, possibly 2, because I'm not going to rush it. A, because I'm an old guy, and B, because I want to do this properly and not start using it and thinking, oh, that should have gone over there. Not going to go through that. So I may be on hiatus for a week or 2, maybe from week after next. We'll see, but I will let you know, and I will put it on my schedule on Twitch. So lots of discussion about what FAWM's about. Rielka Music says, as long as your creativity is sparked, it's all good. Dazed and Confused says, make one song 14 times. That has been done. I have you rewrite one song, or one song inspires another song, and there are actually chains called Exquisite Corpses, which are huge fun to take part in, where you write a song and then you send the 10 seconds at the end of your song to somebody else, and they do another minute of that song following on from your 10 seconds, and then they send the final 10 seconds of their song on to somebody else, and they write another minute, and then you get where this is going. And it's like Chinese whispers, so how the song starts often bears absolutely no resemblance to how it finishes, and they're huge fun. So, as Ryako Music says, have fun, feel free to experiment. Dazed and Confused says, De Freshdo says, Dazed and Confused sounds easier and funnier when it's said like this. There's discussions of, there's one guy who signed up a few years ago, and as Ryako Music says, unless you get a shit's weak dog. Dazed and Confused says, yeah, best thing about that place, you'll almost never get that, except as a spammer comment, says Ryako Music. Ryako Music says, we wouldn't have become such good friends, Chris, if we hadn't started forming. Exactly. We're equally obsessive, we're equally nerdy about music, and, you know, a lot of you guys I've only known as a result of February Album Writing Month, and, you know, nerds and music people tend to identify the cool kids and like the kids that they want to hang out with, who are in the same sort of cult, for want of a better word, as they are. And it's like, oh yeah, they're okay, they're special, we'll hang out with them. And here we are. Dazed and Confused says, yep, and unless you're someone I know in real life, and that's about the best comment I give, you should stop this immediately. This is trash. Nice. Rearranging is sometimes fun and inspiring. Ryako Music says about me dismantling in here, that sounds like a ton of work. Dazed and Confused says, you might find a keyboard and guitar stuffed behind something you've forgotten about. I find stray pedals all the time, always makes my day. I have a box in there of underneath the keyboards, which is just full of old guitar pedals. Seriously, it's quite sad. I've got an H&H VS Musician 100-watt 2x12 combo under here, and that'll have to be wheeled out as well, as will the Marshall stack back there. And the H&H came with this weird electric mistress flanger with like a 13-pin DIN socket on it that you plug into the front of the amp. And the last time I used it, it went bang. So it's just in a box at the moment. But it might work still, possibly. But yeah, finding stuff over here is more than likely. Although I cleared out the top of the bed, which is now completely free. Found a melodica. It's like, oh, I wondered where that had gone. So yes, I might take a few leaves out of Fuzzy's book in February Album Writing Month and write something on melodica. Or maybe I should live stream from downstairs, and rather than all the musical gear, I'll just play something on the melodica. We shall see. Scoring stuff on her stream where she scores Metropolis, the 1927 Fritz Lang movie, about putting in the hours to get good at doing this stuff. And one of the reasons for me doing this show is to encourage people to put in the hours. There is no magic plug-in that you can buy that will just turn you into a master musician. Although, technology-wise, the things that are possible these days with GarageBand and even voice. So I think it was Mike Scliar, was it, on 5090, was writing loads of songs on guitar and singing and recording them on his iPhone, and his iPhone was adding drums that worked. It was like, okay, that's what sorcery is this? But I have lost my phone. Oh, there it is. When lockdown started, Nancy Ross says that's music memos that Mike Scliar uses. Thanks, Nancy. That's right. I don't have an iPhone. What am I trying to do here? I am trying to. Right. So I have an Android phone, and when lockdown started, Korg said, we're going to give you this for free for musicians to entertain themselves. So it is an app on my phone that is the Korg K oscillator. So if I... So what I can do is I can start recording. How mad is that? So you get the idea. Just a little thing that Korg were giving away, just to keep people occupied during. So N-Track 9, remember I was saying I started with N-Track. There's a free edition. It's got some disabled features, but for 99 cents a month, you can have a DAW on your phone. How mad is that? You can just use your phone to make music. If you've got an iPhone, the music memos that Nancy mentioned, I was stunned with what Mike was able to do with it, because it just sounded like real drums. So we might be living in crazy times, but for musicians, the stuff that we've got, I'm making stuff in here that I want to sound like a progressive rock band, then I'm just going to do it. Dazed and Confused says about the Android app. Oh, you shouldn't have showed me that. Audio Lab is a really great phone DAW as well, and it's free. Nancy Ross says, is Audio Lab for Android? Yep, it is. Ooh, right. I might have to investigate that. That could be a project for this show, is making a track in here or in the new version of the studio on my phone, just using Audio Lab. Ooh, that sounds fun. So yeah, we're about getting you to writing the good stuff faster. So what am I going to do? I'm going to be exploring how I make music in Ableton Live. So again, remember, this is Ableton Live. It's my DAW of choice. It's not free, but it is very, very, very powerful. And if you're into electronic dance music or drum and bass or trap or synthwave or anything else, I can't think of a better DAW for making those sort of sounds. It's gorgeous. I'll be explaining how I make the different sounds that I make with a bewildering variety of plugins, some of which are free, some of which are not, varying from a very, very good version of the Lindrum, which I was playing with last week. Remember this? So the number of tracks in the 1980s that I loved, the number of albums that I have, that the drums were actually one of the original hardware version of this is just bewildering. Riako Music says, we're lucky to have this technology. I'm quite grateful for it. De French Doe says, would love to see sound design tips and how-tos with free plugins. You've got it. That's where I'm coming from with this. So there will be lots about stuff like reverbs and how to make your synths sound better or warmer or edgier, how to get sounds that don't sound like everybody else, how to make stuff that's original, how to mess things up in some respects, because messing things up, dropping a fuzz box on a lead synth line will work wonders for your synth leads. They really will. So yeah, I will be very much talking about sound design and what not to do with it and mistakes that I've made and learned not to do with it. And apart from anything else, I'm going to be learning a lot in doing these shows because you guys are by no means newbies and you have a wealth of experience that I want to hear from in the chat. And if I can figure out a way of getting you guys as guest artists, even if it's Skype or something else, there must be ways that I can get you guys in on the act, and I would love to do that as part of this show as well. So apart from anything else, and it's something that I was doing on the 5090 show as well, I'm an e-learning specialist by trade. That's what I spent 30 odd years doing in my professional career. I've got a master's in what is effectively online education. So teaching people through e-learning and online learning and everything else is my jam. So I will be, I'm afraid, even resorting to the occasional slide deck. I use LibreOffice because, again, we're all about the free. I don't do Microsoft Office, but what I do have is LibreOffice, which is a completely free alternative to Microsoft Office. And as you can see, I have already produced a number of 5090 show guides that we've used over the past, complete with hand-lettered titles. Riako Music says, I think it would be great if you talked about your strengths and weaknesses as a musician, like how to evaluate yourself and your skills. That is a really good idea. And there are a number of psychological and educational psychology concepts that I can talk about that map very, very well onto the music sphere. So that is an extremely good idea. And it even ties in, I'm going to throw a professional bit of terminology. It actually ties in with Benjamin Bloom's taxonomy of learning in the cognitive domain, the hierarchy of cognitive skills that you employ when you learn. Top of the hierarchy, when you've got to where you need to be in the hierarchy at the top, it's all about evaluation. So let's do that. Riako Music says, cool. So we'll do that. And that's it. So I'm hoping to get news on the studio build this week. I will know hopefully by Thursday's show when I'm going to get the desk being delivered. And it's being delivered locally. I've selected a product. It's not mass produced. It's actually being built from the other side of Bristol using reclaimed wood. So I'm trying to be as carbon neutral about this as I possibly can. And nothing that I'm getting rid of, hopefully, is going to the tip. It's all being free cycled and given fresh homes. But it's going to take time because, I mean, you've seen this. You can see this room. If I just switch back to the wide view, I've got that bookcase is probably going to stay where it is. I was toying with the idea of fixing it to the opposite wall, but I am not in physical shape for actually moving all of that stuff. But the Marshall stack there, the keyboards will have to come off the stand. The stand will probably stay in the room somewhere, but the bed has to go. Raja, hey guys, I got my mail-in ballot. Yes, that's good. Make a difference. Nancy Ross says, that's great, Noir. Dazed and Confused says, amazing. So, excellent. That's really good news. Let us hope that the news in, it's less than 3 weeks for you guys now, isn't it? Good Lord. Where is this year going? Absolutely insane. Dazed and Confused says, I got my mail-in ballot end of last month. That's brilliant. Excellent. So Squirrel, the Marshall stack is ex Thin Lizzy, and I still have the receipt on Thin Lizzy Limited notepaper, and those things are loud. Marshall basically make two flavours of 4x12 stacks, and they are rated in terms of the root mean squared peak wattage that the cabs can handle. The standard one that your average one a Marshall stack guitarist buys is the 1960 cabinet, which is rated at 200 watts RMS. But those, because they were effectively for an arena rock band, are 1982s, and they're rated at 320 watts RMS. So they're 50% louder again. And I've only wound it up full once. And that was when I discovered that thing with a ARIA Strat plugged into it can blow empty crisp packets off pub tables at a distance of 20 feet. Because I've done it. Dazed and Confused says, that's even cooler knowing where it came from in its history. I've even spotted it. The Thunder and Lightning live album, or the Thunder and Lightning album, has a live shot of the band on the back of it, and you can see John Sykes on stage right, and he has two Marshall stacks, and that's one of them. Dazed and Confused says, where I'm at, I know for a fact you can hear a Marshall just single 4x12 cab over a mile away. Oh gosh, yes. And right, we've been squirreled on the chat because Belinda has a cheeseburger and curly fries, and that's not fair. Ryoko Music says, I want curly fries so badly. I love curly fries. I'm trying to lose weight. Oh, no, Nancy's won because Nancy says, and I have a cat. We must have pictures. I need pictures for next week's show, Nancy. There we go. More cats. Nancy Ross says, Nico Case cats. Yes, indeed. Why is it that at least 3 people on my Instagram / Twitter / Facebook feed have bought new cat trees this week? Because Nico has, Richard Kadri, the writer, has, and somebody else had as well. I can't remember who it was. I think given the fact that I'm going off on wild tangents looking for other people's cats on the internet, that it's probably about time that we close proceedings for tonight. Oh, Noasha says, oh yeah, Jen says hi. Hello, Jen. Nice to hear from another viewer. So really, really good. Ryaka Music says, see, we're not squirreled, we're catted now. Ryaka Music says, I have bought a Halloween costume for Mr. Pickles. Ryaka Music had a lovely three-legged cat called Chubbs, who had his own Starfleet uniform. I'm just going to leave that factoid there for you. Nancy Ross says, adorable. And some bat wings for Queen. Oh, give Queenie a hug from me. Queenie is this enormous, fluffy, black and white cat who makes silly noises. So, yeah, Queenie's lovely. And we're back on cats, which I guess is a step up from food, although arguable. Yeah, I need to work off my gut, which is why I've been out doing me 5,000 steps this afternoon. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling better than I have done for about the last week. I hope you guys are going to do better next week and are going to do better next month and the month after that. And let's hope that the light at the end of the tunnel becomes apparent before too much longer. But I think over here we're looking at lockdown probably going to need to take place fairly soon, because we're now up at between 13 and 17,000 new cases a day taking place in the UK, which is not good because people are not obeying social distancing rules. People are not wearing masks. And folks, it's the sensible thing to do. Wear a damn mask, please. It's not just for you, it's for other people who might not be in a position to be as blasé about catching the disease as you are. So please respect social distancing rules. Please wear a mask. Please look after yourselves. Stay well, stay sane, and stay safe wherever you are. And I will be back on this channel next Thursday, hopefully without belching into the microphone on a regular basis. And we'll see where we go from that point, because I may have a new desk incoming. And that is going to mean big changes in here. So I'm really looking forward to it. I hope to share those big changes with you pretty soon. So fingers crossed. Until then, look after yourselves.